Elton John said once that he wished he had written "Every Breath You Take" by Sting, of course, the Police, right? And he was very serious about it. He's like, that's the one song I wish I had written, as a songwriter. Have you ever had the experience of seeing a piece of art and think, oh man, I wish I would have done that one?
I always have these, oh man. I don't know if it's, oh man, I wish I did that. I wish I was in that space. I wish my artwork was there, right? Not necessarily that actual form, but I wish I did that, I do have that sort of, so it's interesting. I don't know if you follow my work here, but I don't like doing design competitions as much because I've won close to maybe $35 million in design competitions that never got built. One example is the Orlando Terminal C. So every time you go into Terminal C and you see these giant hanging pieces of light, there was a sculpture that I had won and beat out over 100 people about this idea of a journey of a boy that grew up in Orlando and wanted to find dreams here, but made his own dreams. It was a paper airplane they was throwing. And every time I look up in the ceiling, I'm like, wow, I wish that was there. Because, you know when you go to Singapore and you see the waterfalls, it's like, for me, it's like defining airports through iconic moments. And I think Orlando Airport lost an opportunity for that iconic moment. If you ever seen the competition I won in Jacksonville, it's called, people call it the LERP, the Lex, the Love. It's this $18 million commission that's 151 feet, representing the length of the St. Johns River. It had this idea of an anchor, this idea of an infinity symbol, and the A for love that spelled out Jax, but you can actually see it in different forms, and people interpret it in different ways. And I've never had a sculpture that never got built, but had so much memorabilia from it. There's hats, there's socks, there's miniature versions. 2 people got tattoos of it, and the thing's not even built. I mean, it physically has a tattoo on it. So I think it's, it's great to kind of be able to create artworks that inspire people, right? To do things like that,
Oh, that's wonderful. You just reminded me. I'm from Panama originally, so I was born and raised out there, and I chose to come here to the United States many, many years ago. But you just reminded me that sense of pride, right? Of wanting to design something and then seeing it through. When we had the expansion to our Panama Canal, there was a competition, but the requirement was that the winner of the design couldn't be the builder.
Yeah.
Right, because they wanted to kind of separate the two, right? They wanted a true design, right? But then they wanted someone else to build it. So that's 2 separate contracts, right? And they were interviewing the folks who won. It was a German company who had the design for the new set of locks and whatnot. And for me, it was kind of hard to understand, but they were actually very happy, very proud that it was their design, even though they don't get to build it. Because obviously, for a project like that, the build-out is a lot more money, right, than the actual design itself. Yeah. So, interesting.
Well, actually, side note on that, I won't say the city, but a competition I did win, which was $1 million. They said they didn't have the funding, but a couple of years later, I got some plans saying they're building it. And I'm like, what? And it was actually the builder and the designer that actually were on the selection committee.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go.
That actually took that, thought it was a free design, and tried to do it. So, I think it's interesting that, that as we start shaping cities more than buildings and integrating art and culture, it really helps kind of create the soul for cities, and I think that's the value of public art and why we do it. The Panama Canal, of sort of a historic infrastructure element and making it a piece of art as well, and something like that is another example of how you can create great places and moments.
Indeed. I have a very good friend, old friend. I hope he's watching online. He's a musician. In fact, we went to college together. And I'm going to throw this at you and see if this has happened to you, okay? He was living up in Canada, and he got a phone call that his loving aunt had passed away. And he hung up. He went for a walk. And, he doesn't remember, at least he doesn't remember how long he was on that walk. He thinks it's about, less than an hour. And in that moment, through that walk, a song, the entirety of it, the lyrics, the music, the arrangement, the whole thing just came to him. He got home, he recorded it, he wrote it and then recorded it. He sent to me, what do you think about this? Is that something that has happened to you? I mean, that quick, that's something that just comes to you as a function of an experience?
I think that's the research component of it. It's like as I go in there and I dive into, who originally inhabited these lands, Why does your city have these symbols for your flag? What was here before the city was there? Was it agriculture? What kind of agriculture? And it's really kind of taking the roots that established these things, the memories that helped create what is there now, and creating form for that, So for me, the research component allows me to kind of have these really fast. I don't think I've had something where I read a song or heard something or took gummies or chocolates or something come to me. But no, I think for me, the easiest way to get inspiration is through research. And then I think the talent is figuring out how to create form or ideas for form from that research. That's where I think the creativity or the talent is.
Oh, but that's a beautiful process, because through the research you're connecting with, like you said, the people who were there before, right? What was the intent before? How did it evolve, right? And in that, you're actually tapping into the human condition. You're tapping into the environment. You're tapping in, and then that becomes the source of inspiration.
Sure, like everything has memory, right? So maybe as you go into that research, maybe it's something on a very deeper level where I'm connecting with the land, and maybe there's some sort of holistic or spirits or something there that's informing me intuitively, I think we're all guided in some ways, or it's all information, if you start looking deeper into, that's why I love research, to kind of understand that. And maybe I am being guided, and the thing is, like, when I did have that life incident, it made me kind of more focused, I am taking drugs, like 12 pills a day, but for my heart. And maybe that's also doing things to me that's opening up my mind a little bit faster, I think the key of why I've been able to I don't know if it's, I always hate the word using successful, but that I've been able to accomplish things is because I've been able to take ideas, which there's a lot of people can do that, but I've been able to execute. And that's the thing that I think a lot of artists are having a hard time is how to execute things fast and in a way that is done that can become something that becomes timeless. That's kind of not like a one-hit wonder per se, right? So
like we had in the 80s,
Yeah.
a lot of those. So I was very excited to have you in the podcast. And this podcast I started this to inform people and to present people. I'm a technologist, I'm an engineer, and I love science, but I'm also an amateur musician. I play the guitar, I sing, I love the art. And you're my first, artist, you're a...
well, Filipinos like karaoke. So.
Oh, well, there you go. So you need to come to our next jam session, right? But I, as much of a technologist and lover of science and math and medicine and all these things, I also feel that art is essential for the well-being of a community. I don't know who whose quote was this. I should know this, but someone some long time ago said that a society can be defined by the quality of art it produces, right? And I truly believe that, and I believe that art, we should go from STEM, people are saying that now, from STEM to STEAM,
Yeah.
to include that A, because through art, we can communicate in ways that we can't with any of the other tools that we have available to us. Are you on board with that? I mean, do you relate to that, in what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I always feel there's a form of healing through art, right? I think art is non-binary, non-political. I think the reason why I didn't win those, I ever accomplished those $35 million worth of work is because I should have asked, if I'm competing, is what term is that mayor or that senator in? Because if they're in their last term, then it's not going to get done. And that's what happens. It's a new mayor or someone would come in and they was like, oh, that wasn't my idea, right? But for me, it's really about this idea that art is democratic, right? It's about freedom of expression. It could be non-political if you want to. I mean, there's a lot of political artists there, and I don't really want to, I say kind of neutral, I guess. But then there's important things that I do that create healing, like that are not competitions that I do pro bono. Like, so for example, the Pulse Memorial, the Pulse Art Tribute. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing the Pulse Memorial downtown, but I'm doing an art tribute in Osceola County, which is 49 angel wings, 49 feet tall, that form into this rainbow, to honor the victims, families, and first responders and survivors of that. And the reason for Osceola County is because a lot of the victims' families are from Osceola County. And so to give them a place as an art tribute where the incident didn't happen. Because a lot of folks won't even go downtown ever, but they'll come here. So for me, it's not to recall the days of what happened in that event. It's to honor the people who lost their lives that night. So, and then the other piece is like, in terms of technology, is this amazing opportunity that I'm working on with Richard Branson. It's going to be the world's largest underwater sculpture. It's like 10 stories tall. It's a human figure kneeling on the ground that has his hands coming out that show the 12 elders related to the elders like Nelson Mandela. That's ideas of people who are very, you could see here on the screen, that are very about keeping the world in an protected, from environmental solutions. And the hand comes out 30 feet in the water and becomes like a light tower, so boats will see it and people will scuba dive as you come there. And technology-wise, it's like instead of building it you can't just go sink it, right? We're building it piece by piece. And kind of like when you go to a new house and you see, or a resort, you see beautiful landscaping, it's small, like, oh, don't worry, I'll look great in 20 years, the landscaping. What we're doing is we're making like the foot or the ankle or the limbs, and then we're hooking low voltage electrodes so that corals can attach to it. And then once it's all attached, then we assemble everything together so that we're not waiting for the structure to have corals attached when we first do it. It's already going to all pre-attach, and this will be a great opportunity to kind of study and share to the world about how art and corals are very important to sustaining water quality.
Where is it going to be?
So Necker Island,
okay.
Between Necker and Mosquito. Necker is the island that he owns down there. So,
wonderful, wonderful. Is there a space that you have your eye on? You mentioned spaces, like, I didn't necessarily want to have that art, but I wanted that space. Is there an empty space that you're eyeing on right now?
So you actually hit it. It was interesting because that's why people are billionaires. They ask for a discount all the time. And I said, sure, if you give me 2 seats on Virgin Atlantic. So I could have myself and a spot for not necessarily a companion, but for a sculpture. So
Okay.
then I would have the first sculpture in space that then could have an art exhibit in space. Then I can auction that and then buy many seats, right?
There you go. There you
But
go.
you know, the idea that expanding beyond into you know, another dimension. The interesting about Mr. Branson, he's air, land, sea, and space, right? So how can I tie in art and culture as we start moving off this planet? And how does art become another layer versus an afterthought, right? As we move into other places we can inhabit.
What is the one project that, you know, other than this, I mean that's pretty exciting, you know, but what is there something else that you're really looking forward to doing?
So you know, I do have heart disease, you know, and so it was interesting because my biggest advocacy is the American Heart Association. I had literally was in New York walking the red carpet with Sharon Stone and all these other American heart advocates. And the next day I had a heart incident and went to Advent. They had told me that they did a card cath and they said, you had triple bypass, but 2 of your bypasses are closed. You had 4 stents and 2 of your stents are closed. And I said, why am I still here? Like, what did you do? Like, you went in there, did you do anything? Like, did you, like, no, we didn't do anything. You know, what happened to you is that we were trying to figure out why blood flow wasn't coming to certain areas by the x-ray, but when we went in there, we realized that your heart was building its own collaterals to go around the blockages itself. It's kind of this idea where the water would come to a dam and would create new tributaries, or if there's traffic, you know, people create their own ways to get around it. So the human body is interesting, and I think for me, it's just me continuing to manifest and try to keep the goal in mind of creating these landmarks around the world that help do that. And so the thing back to what I'm looking forward to is my next series of artworks will be based on the heart. Going through that process with the card cath, with the x-rays, with the echoes, with the sound, is creating an exhibit that shares all those diagrams, sounds, smells of what it means to have heart disease, and creating a show that then will go nationally, sponsored by the American Heart Association, to kind of do something that talks about me. When you're saying something within, it's literally me, you know, so.
That's fantastic. One of the things that I do in this podcast is in addition to try to create awareness, in addition to educate and provide a platform for people to connect with the community. This is about the community. We do this once a month so that people can actually get here to meet you. Hopefully you can stick around for a few minutes and meet the crowd. But it's also to challenge the community, because the community needs to be challenged in order for it to thrive. And we have a beautiful community here. I'm a resident here, you're a resident here, everybody here. And I believe we need more art. What would you say to our community members here in Lake Nona / Orlando as far as what to go out there and do, you know, how to get started, how to find inspiration, you know, like things that have worked for you, so that they can come out and show us what they've got.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, like Lake Nona has become, and the Tavistock group have become a role model for other communities of how to integrate art within their infrastructure. Every time I've met a client, it's always like, oh, we've seen your work at Lake Nona, you know, or, oh my God, you did the work at Lake Nona, but we've looked at it as a model. And I think it's really, for me, the private sector really is the people who actually can help heal communities. The cities are there, they have too many responsibilities, but it's always the private sector that niches the gaps that the cities can't fill, right? And the private sector will have more time to dedicate to what is really good art versus the city sometimes doing things because they want to just check boxes, right? Or a certain leader or someone in office will want something on his checklist as well, right? As resume builders, right? The private sector doesn't care about any of that. They really are there to serve the community. And Tavistock has, Mr. Lewis, Craig Collins, Juan, the people who are here that believe in art and empowered to work with artists is a good way to kind of engage yourself in communities. So if you're an artist, go to communities that value art. Like go to Wynwood, right? Come to Tavistock, right? Or Lake Nona. See how they do it. See how they intentionally do things. Through a curated process. People always see these. Have you seen the A&E fees here? They're hidden, right? And when you eat something, that goes towards. It's a really small percentage. It doesn't go to me, but it goes to the programming and the art that they do here. And and even in making decisions when they build new buildings, that they dedicate that idea of 1% or percentage for art here. So one of the projects I did over here is in the office building across from the dog sculpture. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's a LEED certified building, which means it's like a green building that relates to environmental. They got a certification. And one of the things was dealing with the stairwell. And we created an art piece in the stairwell. I don't know if you've seen it. It's this fractal finish. It's all based on motion of people using the stairs that change the color as it goes through the day. And there's an actual map on there that says stairs, and you can actually see the number of calories the building has burned every day. So this idea of functional art is part of it. So that's a hidden piece in here. But then also Tavistock's done a great job of incorporating mural artists here that you see everywhere within Pixon, like Pixon, the building we're in, over in Boxey Park. They're just always innovators, and I think you just have to be in a community that really appreciates artists. You can't go somewhere. I mean, you can be a trailblazer if you want to, but it's easier to be in somewhere where you're already accepted, and then learn the basics there before you can come and become a maverick.
Excellent. Well, I knew this was going to happen. It always happens. We start talking, and then you blink, and an hour has gone by. I want to open up and see if anybody has any questions for Jefre. I knew. Glenn, let me hear so I can repeat it to the folks in. So the question is for those online is Glenn, of course, one of our residents here. He's been here for a number of years. Met you at the Wave. He wants to know what was the special sauce that drove you to come here to Lake Nona specifically.
It was a chroma. Just kidding. The great food. No, I mean, before I stop, the Disney thing is, when we first started doing the garage here, we wanted to create things here that you didn't have to buy a ticket for. Like, if you think about it, with Universal, Disney, all the theme parks, we should be the most creative city in the whole world and have them all here, right? But people think they're only living behind that gate, and we want to have them come out of the gate and start taking that experience outside to kind of incorporate art in the communities. What made me move to Lake Nona, I mean, ironically, was when I was an urban design and planner, I was actually working on, as an intern, working in the design of the park called Gladding Green, which is behind the YMCA. And it was designed by Gladding Jackson, the firm I worked for when I moved here. And I decided to buy the townhouse there to kind of live on the park that I actually designed. And it worked out fabulously because if I moved here again, I'm on a plane once every 2-3 times a week, like I'm leaving tomorrow again, right? So the idea of the vicinity of the airport, but the idea, it's interesting because people never want to live by the airport, but the fact that you have these levels of community in terms of education, safety, arts and culture, the things that you would see in the suburbs is really here, still suburbs, but next to an airport, which you don't find. And the fact that you can come here and then get on an airplane in 5 minutes is amazing. So I came here specifically because I designed something here. So
there you go. Any other questions from the crowd? Yes, Austin. So the question is, the process of creating art is a series of different steps. Do you have one of those steps that is the one that you enjoy the most or your favorite?
Cutting the ribbon. No, I enjoy, like I said, the research part of it, but then I love doing still modeling. So I'll still do some clay modeling, computer modeling, clay modeling. Like a lot of these sculptures you see here, the process is we do hand sketches, and then we do 3D computer models, but then we do 3D printed or clay models so that we can get it 3D scanned. And then we make one-to-one foam models. So that 9-story sculpture, there's a giant foot, a giant torso, that then it becomes the armature to hand forge all the metal around it, tack weld it, just so we then label them, and then have like hundreds of thousands of parts in the warehouse. And then we have to build internal structure because that foam is not going to stand up to category 3. Build the structure, reattach each piece like an IKEA, seam weld it, and then polish the whole thing. Yeah. But the ribbon cutting is always the best.
Any other questions? Jefre, I am very grateful that you accepted my invitation to come to the podcast. You know, we've met a couple of times in passing. You're always very busy when you're around here. You always have people around wanting to talk to you. So I'm very grateful that you made the time and the opportunity to have this conversation. I think I love your art. You know, when people come over here to visit, I take them to this, to the garden and show them all the stuff that's there. You know, all your stuff. Thank you for making the time, and best of success.
And thank you as well for the platform you give to highlight our community and the very talented people that make how we live and enjoy life today.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.